Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-affleck.
And it's time for...
I'm free! We're free! I'm free! We're free! UnSpun.
Oh, dude. Honestly, I might cry.
Happy days. A lot of happy news to start our show off. We start with the happy, then go to the angry.
Okay, let's start with the happy. I think it's really important. We are actually taping our podcast later in the day because we record on Thursdays. And on this Thursday, the provincial health officer held a modeling press conference at 1 p.m. So we decided to wait. There's still question and answer going on right now. But just as we were hitting the record on UnSpun podcast, Dr. Henry said that she is issuing a new provincial health order that will allow, it gives me goosebumps to even say this out loud, George. It will allow gatherings outdoor, safe distance gathering outdoor of up to 10 people. The same 10 people, not those 10 people and then those 10 people tomorrow and then those 10 people. Just this, it's like a safe 6, but now it's 10 outside.
Now it's 10.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
I'm so excited. And she even went on to say specifically about your kids. Your kids can now have play dates with the same group of kids that they want to hang out with, that they're in the cohort with at school or daycare or whatever. Mm-hmm. They can play outside. I mean, it's so warm and beautiful and cherry blossoms. We're so lucky in southern BC anyway. It's just, I was listening to her speak and she was talking about these next 2 weeks or what is going to tell us what April is going to be like. And I was like, oh God, she's going to say the 2-week thing again. Yeah. And you know me, I'm on side. I'm like, I'm in. I feel the marathon. I know we're almost there. Oh, dude, I was just like, and she goes, no, but for March break, which for those who have kids is tomorrow is the last day of school before March break.
I totally actually forgot because we live in this world now where dates and holidays and weekends don't seem to matter anymore. I totally forgot it was spring break coming up. So that's awesome.
I'm so relieved. Honestly.
And then, with my other kids, so I get to hang out and we all get together. And now because that 10 is basically that's it. I mean, there's other people in the world, but that's what equal to what I have in my life that I see,
Right.
It's like, I think most of us are like that. When you think about if you have a couple of kids and some girlfriends and boyfriends and whatever, and the grandma, and there's 10. I mean,
she even said it. I'm so glad you said grandma, because she even said that you can meet your friends outside for a coffee or even have a picnic at the park with your grandparents. Just, you got to keep the distance, right? Like we're reaching, this is Dr. Henry speaking to this. We are reaching the point, she said, we are reaching the point where transmissibility is lower at this time of year. I mean, we saw it last summer once it started to warm up. That's when, things sort of calmed down, even with the variants of concern. She's talking about, we got to stop the risky contact. She was saying, stop with the workplace maskless thing. Like, don't go into the coffee room, take your mask off and go, okay, so tell me everything. What'd you do? Like, that's not great. So if you could just not do that, right? And it's just doing those protected, distanced masks. She kept saying, like, wash hands, stay home if you're sick, distance, mask, the same thing we've been listening to for, by the way, George, happy anniversary, 1 year of COVID-19. Yeah.
1 year ago this week, I came back from Los Angeles after just prior, the last flight out of Los Angeles, I think, a trip we'd planned. And it was like weird. And I think we talked about it back then. When I had gone down there and we, of course, were like, oh, should we go? Should we go? It's still like we knew this was happening, what's happening. And we get down there and toilet wars were happening up here. Remember toilet paper wars? And we got down there and we saw some friends and we're talking about this. And they're like, what? What? The toilet paper? What? And everything was normal. It's so normal down there. Like there was nothing going on.
But the difference though, in that they're being totally normal. Like, remember a year ago when we started talking about, well, Sweden's going to do nothing, right? Yeah. Dr. Henry also referenced mortality rates overall in Canada in 2020. So it ended December 31st. So from January 1st to December 31st, 2020 in Canada, our mortality rate increased by 5%. So not great. Obviously, any death is awful, but
based on the average that we have,
and COVID-19 broke into the top 10 cause of death in Canada. In the United States, 15% increase in deaths year over year. Yeah. So the
Yeah, you
people that
do
are
that. Do the
like,
math. You can look at we got 26,000, I think, died in Canada. I think at this point, or something like that. In America, what is it? Pushing 500. It's like it's 20 times more than us.
it's getting close to 600,000. And Dr. Peter Hotez, who is a great follow on Twitter, if you're following George
Underscore
Affleck at Jody Vance on Twitter, certainly Professor Peter J. Hotez, who is a vaccinologist, a vaccine specialist. He is a researcher. He's the dean of medicine
on CNN, pretty sure.
CNN, MSNBC, Fox. He's one of the only people that does all of them. And CKNW is a good friend. We've been talking for years, he and I.
Yeah, that's right.
He was the one who taught me. I'm going to tell you right now, Jody, get used to this term, physical distancing. And I'd never heard it before. I'm like, what is that? He's social distancing before physical distancing. But he's been right at every turn. He's been right at every single turn. And today, great news, again, from Dr. Hotez, Professor Hotez, that the research out of Israel, which is where the Pfizer vaccine has been administered to the bulk of the population, over 50% of the people in Israel have been vaccinated, which is about the same population as BC. Has shown like that's where we're getting the real-time data about stretching the dose window that might improve immunity, blah, blah, blah. The information out of Israel now is that people who have been vaccinated with 2 doses and have been, are 3 weeks out from their second dose do not shed or carry virus via their nose or mouth. So don't spread it, even if they come in contact with it, which is huge good news for all of us.
That is a huge step for sure, because we're hearing stories about these other viruses and other stuff going on, but you're sort of like, dude, we just want some positive news. For a few minutes. In fact, one of my team, Carrie, she was online registering and getting her dad in, who's 86, so she was getting him logged in. He's out in Surrey, I think, so getting his appointment set, because they're 4 days ahead of where they thought they'd be earlier this week.
Let's talk about that. You lay that down
on a bad way. Getting into the negative news. I think enough positive. Well, let's move on to the negative. The big Monday launch of being able to sign up and phone up, and for the 90+-year-olds. And what is it? 1.5? Like, why did
1.7 million people? 1.7 million calls in British Columbia for a group of people, for a cohort that total, including 90+ and 65 and up Indigenous peoples in BC, total combined is under 70,000 people.
It's just okay. So there are two things that happen. One is more than one person in the family was calling, which is bad. Then the other issue of just multiple calls because people are so frustrated. Instead of just saying, you know what, let's take an hour, just relax. But Telus screwed up. This is Vancouver Coastal Health, because it seemed to go okay everywhere else. It was just in Vancouver Coastal Health, which is where I live and
just
you live.
Huge.
It's funny because Burnaby is not in Vancouver Coastal Health. I always find that weird. The border of Vancouver Coastal Health is the edge of Vancouver, and then all the way up the coast to Whistler, and all the way up to the Powell River, which is kind of strange to me. But that's the region. But we blew it. I mean, Telus blew it. But what was interesting is the backlash.
369, dude. Everyone else is like 2,023, 35. They are 369 calls taken, appointments made in 8 hours. 369. I looked at that number and I'm like, I was DMing with the health minister. I'm like, I'm gonna need a quote because I was gonna write for the middle. And he got back to me. I have to say, he got back to me right away. And I mean, obviously, he has been held to task since then. Question period. I haven't watched Question period in a while.
Talk about spin, though.
Well, that's why I'm talking to you about it, because what can he say other than let's throw Telus under the bus? And then today it's like, Telus is great.
Bullshit. That's what that is. Sorry, internet.
Way to give us an E for explicit.
We're getting an E for explicit. We did it. That is so cheap to go and blame Telus. I mean, sure, they screwed up. But you know what? You signed the contract. You should have known the details of the contract. I think Rob Shaw has written a column about this today in the Orca.
And I love the headline that McLean came up with. Tell us what happened.
Oh, good one.
Or tell us the details. Joke. Oh, I got to look it up now. But it's
is that like John Horgan wrote that headline there, McLean? That's a dad joke.
It is a dad joke. I love it. Maybe he's turning a bit into a little bit of a dad joke guy.
He's spending too much time with his kids at home. But but you don't do that. You got to take responsibility as a government. Say, we screwed up. we'll fix it tomorrow, because then they can take credit for fixing it the next day.
Yeah.
But instead throwing a corporation whose stock then went down probably 2% that day, it was not cool and not the way you should do it. That's not taking responsibility, and the buck stops at the people who are elected, and they didn't do it.
So yeah, a little bit of a spinola there, but how could you, and I'm just coming at this from the middle perspective that I try and bring to our conversations, is as that's happening, as the slow motion train wreck is going down in Vancouver Coastal Health, they had to be looking at it going, what? What do you mean we don't have backup? Of course the phone lines are going to crash. I'm not in communications at that level, and I know that everybody's calling. It's everywhere.
Everywhere.
Campsites, dude. You can't book a campsite without crashing things. Like, come on.
Our province is very good at crashing phone systems and websites.
But it happened in Alberta.
You had a year.
Yeah, you had
a year. You know the data. You know how many people are in the cohorts, the 90 plus. You can multiply that by 10 or whatever it is that you want to do to kind of guess the worst case scenario. All the other regions figured it out, had backups. Why didn't Vancouver Coastal Health? That's a decision by the head of Vancouver Coastal Health. And who's that? Well, I mean, the management team of Vancouver Coastal, whoever signed that contract is the one, and then that's therefore government is responsible for that. And it's a crisis communications situation that they should have. The first lesson in crisis communication is don't point fingers. Don't point fingers. Take responsibility. Apologize. And say we are looking into this. If we don't have an answer, you could say, yeah, Telus screwed up, but it's not. You can't just say that's what happened. You got to say, well, we screwed up by
not double checking this, right? Or not having an online version. These are the things that made me a little crazy. Okay, the fact that there's no online version, right? Because booking online 24 hours, 7 days a week at your leisure, much easier. To try and get through on a phone line in the classic sense these days is impossible. Everything is a call center farmed out somewhere that isn't associated with what you're supposed to be doing. Like, why don't we have a government call center? Why didn't we have, that access to that? Like you said, a year of planning. Why contract out to Telus? Who clearly couldn't deliver on day one. So those are questions. But also, in looking a little bit more closely, you can only call between, 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. What? Yeah. How are we mass vaccinating people and shortening? We're almost banker's hours like this.
Yeah, and
you got to call between these times.
And we were talking because when Carrie, I said earlier, was booking her dad in, and he was like, it's got to be a drive-through, and I don't want to go too far. And she's like, Dad, like, come on.
Get it together.
I can get you in tomorrow at like 9 o'clock. Let's go.
Yeah. It's like you getting the driver's license, right?
It's like, I'd be like, first appointment, how far do I have to go? Like, let me in, like, hook me up. So, but because he's also going, because like, I'd like to see you. It's like, come on.
But I did that. I when I was doing the online booking, because my first dose was at my dad's care home, right? As his essential care. I got the call the evening before, be here tomorrow at 12:45. Okay. So I did that. And then 32 days later, I got a text message that said, click this link. Here's a password, go in there. So I did. I followed all the directions. And it was a brilliantly simplistic process. I mean, here are the places. I could go to Abbotsford. I could go to New Westminster. I could go to Coquitlam. I could go to White Rock. I live in Kitsilano. None of those places are convenient to me. And what did I do, George? I went, where's the first one? Where's the soonest one I can do? And it was in White Rock, and it happened to be a drive-through. And I was like, okay, well, I'll do that.
Here we go.
And
road trip.
It was really interesting. And I was told, don't post on social media, don't talk about it, don't give anybody the password, whatever. I think I can talk about the experience now.
Yeah, now it's wide open now.
Wide open now. But going through, I mean, there are signs there that say like abusive language and anger will not be tolerated. You will be removed from the site. Like, what has happened here that sign is required at a place where people are getting saved?
Wait. What is going on here? Anti-vaxxers showing up, or what's going on?
I don't know. I think that's one of the reasons why they don't want people talking about where they're going specifically. But nonetheless, my my overwhelming feeling this week in watching that debacle and all the upheaval and I've got elders all over the place and they're all looking at me going, you're in news. Tell me what I'm going to do. And I'm like, okay, here are the numbers. Here are the links for your health region. And relax, because you're going to get vaccinated. Like that, if you call today, likelihood it's going to be 7 to 10 days from now that your appointment's going to be. It is. Whether you call today or 3 days from now, it's probably going to be 7 to 10 days away. So calm down. Don't get yourself all in a tizzy, because even if you have to wait until the next cohort begins, you're going to get vaccinated. And I think that's what we got to keep our eye on, because we could be in this. I remember you, George, you're like, this could be endless. In between telling me that Trump was going to be reelected, you were like, we can never get out of this. This could be years. Like, we're lucky.
He would have been reelected if COVID hadn't come along and if he'd done a better job with COVID, he would have been reelected. 100%.
Right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I brought him up. Anyway, suffice to say,
again, this is not about me supporting Donald Trump. This is just based on spin and messaging and so
you're very good and often right. Yes.
And we'll be having speaking of COVID and the vaccines, that we talked about this last week, but it's getting hotter and hotter. That there's going to be an election in June federally. Yeah. Which it's happening. This guy, if he doesn't do it, then and he's got to find a way to do it, because he has to get the people behind it. But he's got to dissolve the government, all that stuff. We've been through it here in BC, but. If he doesn't do that, because he's going to have a budget, is he going to do a budget before he calls an election? Probably not. No.
But June now, really?
Well, the writ will drop in May, and then once we've got everybody over 50 vaccinated, then it's like, let's go.
People have to stop dying every day, George. Before he calls a federal election, people have to stop dying every day.
As long as there's hope, I think he'll do it.
Really?
There's hope that there's an end. We see the end is there. It's happening. We're seeing, you see the data already. It's impressive. And you see what you mentioned, what's happening in Israel. And so, and he has to, as soon as if he delays, like John Horgan, if he were to call an election, like, even though it's got high popularity rating, it wouldn't have gone quite as well as it did in October. So,
you're right.
So it's, it's an interesting, it's also going to, create all sorts of challenges as far as fundraising for, leadership campaigns and fundraising for any municipal candidates who are out there running around trying to get money that shall remain nameless in this show. So it's going to be a lot of politics over the next year and a half.
Well, if you want a little slice of positivity before you dive headlong into the negatives and the cesspool that is happening in some areas of politics right now, check out my column at the Orca. It's been a busy couple of days at the orca.ca, so you might have to scroll down or even go to the next page to find my column, which is not typical for a Thursday, but so much has been happening. There's a lot of great stuff to read on there. As you mentioned, Rob Shaw's latest. Always great to read Rob's work. There are a couple of excellent columns on there. So go to the orca.ca, sign up for the Fin, and you'll find everything in your inbox each and every morning during the week. So easy. Nobody's selling your information. Just put your email in there. McLean curates it, makes it funny. It's great. Let's talk now a little bit more about local stuff, and that brings us to your column, if we may.
Yes, hot off the presses, as it were. And Vancouver is awesome. Yes, we touched on this last week. I think we started the show talking about, petitions and polling, and mainly petitions, and so my column this week's about petitions and how easy it is to get, to a massive amount of people to sign a petition. The old days when you'd go and person be on the street corner, hey, please sign our petition for this, or knocking on your door, or whatever it might be, or community centers. Now you just set up a change.org, who gets tens of millions of people, a year signing up through their, website system, which basically provides the tool, the marketing, and gets you the numbers you need to look like you've got a movement. Less scientific in that, where are these people from? Who are they? How do we know for sure that it's not 2 or 3 people or your dog? Or, there are some challenges to it for sure. It can't be considered scientific. It's a sense of the public's feelings. So my column talks a bit about we can't rely on these petitions, because the Stanley Park bike lane which I know we're going to jump onto next, 30,000 plus on the one poll petition, against the bike lanes. And who knows how many the Green Party did, the opposing one or the pro one, depending on which side of the issue you're on. It's okay. So when you're in office, the key, and I guess my point is you're provided with information, and that you have to make a decision. You have facts, and you have staff that you hope are competent. And they have a process that they go through, that they should be doing the community outreach. And the data they provide you should be solid. And you can question it and you can say it's not, or what is the process that went through. There should be a fairly predictable process, especially for identifying the people who are filling out these forms. And then you use your instincts as a politician. And that might include random petitions that you get, or those mass emails that you get as a politician that are generic, and they come in by thousands and thousands of these things that politicians get. Those are kind of fed into your instinctive, if you're a good politician, your instincts as a politician of going, okay, I got the facts, I got this information here that's based on good theories and that, and then I got the human beings and the petitions and all this other stuff, and I got to get a sense, and that's why I think like John Cooper and Tricia Barker, they truly, I think, represent the true sense of the majority of the city, and I think you do too, as far as this issue of this bike route around Stanley Park. And again, it's not they're not closing Stanley Park Road; it's just one lane for bikes, one lane for cars. Creates a bit of a problem. So their process, I believe, was based on not only there's a poll out there, a petition that's got 30,000, but they're also going, I don't think so. But guess what happened last night? Even though you have all this data, you have a process that's in the middle of happening at Park Board to put something in. So staff are doing their job that was requested that they do. They come back with a report with good data, with good information, with a strategy. These are the kinds. This is, while slower, it's good governance. It's less impactful in a negative way, because now you have this bike versus car nightmare. It's like, and take it away, Jody.
Well, I'm telling you what, I love listening to all of what you said. I'm agreeing. I'm nodding for those who aren't watching but listening. I am absolutely appalled at what happened last night in the Park Board meeting, as this bike lane was pushed through again. That is going to restrict access for people with disabilities, cognitive and physical disabilities, seniors, people that can't ride a bike. And it's just atrocious to me that it is spun into you hate bikes. It's like, no. What I don't like, and you said it, George, a good politician has the instinct and the knowledge and the due diligence done and the temperature of his electorate or her electorate, and takes it all into consideration. What we have been witnessing for now more than a year are a group, Green Cope Alliance, with an agenda, with no plans to ask anybody their opinion about anything to do with anything that anybody other than they want. And we've had that before in Vancouver. We've learned, well, we've had backroom deals,
yes,
things decided before they had.
God,
yeah, we have. So here we are now feeling the sting of it again. And I'm telling you right now, my goal between now and October 15th of 2022, if there's not some kind of snap special something or other in between, is to ask the citizens of Vancouver in particular to do their due diligence on who is making these horrifyingly poor decisions on behalf of the citizens and taxpayers of the city. It is wrong that nobody was able to speak. The reason why the Park Board didn't allow people to speak, why the majority, the Green Cope Alliance majority at the Park Board didn't want speakers, is because they knew that everybody would say, this is wrong. This is wrong. And it shouldn't happen. And I'm going to punctuate with this, George, because I'm getting heated. But the reason why I really feel it shouldn't happen is everything we said prior to opening up this conversation about Park Board is we're in the final phase of COVID-19. We are coming to the end of this pandemic. For somebody to use COVID-19 as a reason to implement what was necessary in their mind a year ago when we were all terrified is not necessary now. When Dr. Henry's like, get outside, go walk with your friends, do your thing, it's all good. Come on. We do not.
I guess we won't be going to Stanley Park. So, I mean, it's
so mad about it. I'm so mad about it.
Well, and it's, a majority rule of the Park Board or whatever, school board or council, whatever it might be, or even whatever. But once you're elected, the general rule is you represent everyone.
Yes.
You're meant to be thoughtful about the people, the city, the region, whatever it might be as a whole.
That's what I like about you as a city councillor.
Yeah, well,
You
and I
did.
got didn't get very far.
But you
As far
tried
as
really
making
hard.
this stuff.
I didn't know you
Well,
back
what
then,
bugged me,
right?
well, but what bugged me was that they definitely the vision majority or super majority in the case of the city hall, where they didn't have to ask for any.
No.
They had 8 of 11 votes, which gave them complete power in that first term I was there
Yeah.
to do anything, real estate sales, anything. So there was little for me to do as far as trying to sway them. They just wouldn't listen.
But George,
But
if I may
guess where
interject,
vision is now? Where is
yeah.
vision now?
But see, can I interject? Here's the mistake. So we, the taxpayers that went and voted, the 30% or whatever of the citizens of Vancouver actually voted, which just boggles my mind. When I was going down that list, I was looking to create a diverse group. And the lesson in that is don't believe their bios. You need to do more than just be like, oh, this park board commissioner says that he's all about consultation.
Who was that?
Dave Damaris.
Dave Damaris. I mean, the irony,
so
the
mad at that.
hypocrisy,
Yeah.
You know what it was more concerning.
I voted for him, George.
Well, I'm just trying to think what Adrian Carr's thinking right now, because of course she and I sat in council for 7 years together. Talk about the champion of consultation. Adrian was when I was there. We were both very frustrated, and she and I in the second term, she got first, I got second on the ballot. Yeah. And the first time you could say, oh yeah, last name Affleck, that's how you won. Second time, but I came in 9th, and she came in 10th in the first election. Second election, she came in first, I came in second. And it was partly because we were completely aligned on talking about proper consultation, listening to the people, giving them a chance, making decisions not in the back room before you came into the chamber, making decisions that were based on the evidence, based on the public sentiment, yada, yada, like I talked about.
But that's why we're doing this. Here she is now. Go ahead.
Here she is now, where they immediately following this morning, Green Party of Vancouver, who she represents, sent out a press release congratulating these jerks on Park Board, these hypocrites, these uncaring elected representatives of the sentiment of the city, to push through their personal ideology and agenda is absolutely, I think that every single Green Party and Colt Party person needs to take responsibility for this in the next election. And I would advocate to anyone, whatever I do in the future, don't trust these parties. They're lying. They don't care about consultation, clearly, especially since the party itself, the Green Party, who Adrian Carr and Pete Fry, who are members of the city council, now they have to wear this too, and they should, because they should be standing up as representatives of City Hall for the people of this city and the region, for God's sake. This is not a city park. This is a regional park given to us for not forever, by the way, that we need to share, and now we're not sharing it. It's completely selfish, it's ideological, and it's completely wrong. The process is wrong, and I'm not. This is not about bikes, for God's sakes, people.
I have
this is about process.
Bikes. Five bikes.
Yeah,
I'm so
How
pissed
do you ride
off.
them all at the same time?
You know what?
Is it a show?
I live so close to the bike lanes that I do think are fantastic, because I do. I ride bike. I love the Arbutus Greenway. I ride my bike all the way down to the end of Spanish Banks. I ride my bike all the way around Science World and back. And I do, all over. And I feel very safe in doing so. We do not need a bike lane velodrome around Stanley Park, period. We don't need it. And to profess that we do.
Speed racers. I hope they start ticketing those guys going 50 to 60 kilometers an hour.
I love that idea.
They better.
Okay, so we don't have time to get to the rest of the stuff that we had planned for today, but I do want to touch on one thing that you and I have been talking about for 114 straight podcasts: booze at beaches.
Oh, yes. Well, Park Board again. They're just going to turn a blind eye like they did last year. If you were down in any park, you could just have a bottle of wine. I don't think anybody got ticketed, did they? I don't think so. And if you do, I would say record it and post it and shame the Park Board again, because it's like they're pushing it. Oh, the province won't let us. It's true because of the structure of the charter, blah, blah, blah. But come on, seriously, chill out, man.
Dr. Henry just told me that I could have my parents and my son for a picnic at the park physically distanced. We wouldn't be able to do that without going to a public space. And my mom is not going unless I pour her a glass of wine at 4:31 and 30 seconds. So
give the people what they want.
It's happening. And it's not going to be in a swell bottle. It's going to be in a swell glass. Somebody should brand some glasses for beach drinking. Anyway, that's all we got time for. Thanks for getting me all fired up. I need a nap now, George.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.